Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 183 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to continue to work on our bots here and expand our logistics network. So we need to build some construction robots. They're pretty similar to the logistics robots. Really, the only difference is that they need their type of brain and their type of tool. And the tools use the same resources. So we basically can use the same setup here to build our construction robots, and we can use these flying frames to also work on them because we only have an output of 1 per second of these brains anyway, so we really don't need to double this up. And I did kind of make this a little too small. I think we planned on having 36 machines, and I only have 30, but that's close enough. Plus, I mean, we have a road here, so it's not much room to expand it. So let's see what we can do about using our existing setup here. It looks like I only needed to have 2 machines making the tools, but I actually have 3. But if we look at our resource requirements, we only need 0.05 of this machine, but I guess it needs to have those in there. So 0.16 making the steel and 0.16 making the aluminum, which means we can reuse this machine down here and just kind of copy these upwards. So we should be able to just kind of move this up a little bit. Don't want to jam it too close, but something like that. And we have to put this in here as well. And we're going to have to change the design a little bit. But it will be Construction Robot 2. Construction Robot 1. And it looks like there's a chest in there, but we have brass chests now, which are bigger and better. I guess 64 slots there. So we might as well use them if that's what we need. And these need to be the correct tools. And we do want to have this little logic system built in here. And we don't have any copper cable. Unfortunately, no matter how automated our system is, we probably want to always carry at least some of these intermediates because we don't want to have every single item we possibly could make in our inventory at any given time because it's going to be a lot of stuff. Plus, like for example, how often do we need transport depot circuit readers? Not very often, to the point to where we can just craft them by hand when we do need them. But we can change this request to add in some copper cable, and then the robots will bring them to us. Then we can make what we need. So as far as the number of robots, we probably want to go based on total construction robots rather than available. With logistics, available works because they're a fairly consistent thing where they're just constantly working. But with construction robots, it happens in big bursts. So if we go by available construction bots, just every time we do construction, the robots are just going to constantly be building because there's going to be none of them available. So we probably just want to go with a fixed amount of construction robots and call it a day. And let's start with, how about 500? So we'll set this to T is less than 500. And that will make the correct bots. So we do kind of need to set this up, and it is true that these won't have access to every frame because some of these machines are too low. And that's okay. We could do a loop around, but I don't think it's going to be the kind of thing where we need 100% production all of the time. So we're probably going to be okay just doing this. We do need to get these brains in here. It's going to be a little weird, but we can just kind of copy this, expand the road, and change these to the correct brain types. And there they go. So we'll do the same thing where the brains go off to the side. Then that can go into deliver the other brain types. And we might want to do the same thing as before. Just making sure there's no unnecessary items on belts. We can hook everything up and see how it works. Oh, and here comes the brains. Let's see, what are these short on? The tools. Wait, how come they're going over there when there's a filter here? Oh, it's the wrong filter type. And I think this needs to be set for construction bots there too. Just so it doesn't overload ourselves here. Seems to be working. Supplying construction robots. We got some extra items in the inventory. Definitely, you want to try to clear out your inventory as automatically as possible. If we take care of every single item that we could possibly have in our inventory at any given time, this list can get huge. So as a result, we probably want to be kind of modest about it. So for example, how often are we going to have flying robot frames in our inventory? Basically only when working on this. So in that situation, we can just take the time to plop the items in here. However, anything on the bus, we probably do want to be automated because we're constantly working on the bus and finding items in our inventory. Let's see, we probably can make this look nice and symmetrical by getting rid of all this stuff. And let's make a requester chest here for those construction bots. And now they're being injected in. So we have some amount of robot control. And there they go. Helping out a little bit. Well, now that we've got that, we can probably talk about personal roboports. And unfortunately, these aren't very useful to us right now. And the reason is power. So if you look at these current construction robots, they use a power consumption of about 30 kilowatts each. And once we have speed upgrades, which we should probably take, so upgrade by 35%, and then this one will upgrade them by 40%. And while we're thinking about it, should probably do the robot capacity as well, giving them +1 capacity. But when you have those upgrades, the power consumption of these robots is going to be about 50 kilowatts each, give or take. And if they're powered by our tiny modular armor, we'll only be able to power them based on what our solar panels can put out. And we can only put out 270 kilowatts with this setup. So if they're consuming 50 kilowatts, then at most we could have about 5 of them in our inventory. And that's only during the daytime, because if it's during the night, our solar panels need to be twice as powerful to charge up for the nighttime. So that means we'd only be able to have about 2.5 robots. And, I mean, that's more than nothing, I suppose. But the difference is you saw what those robots did picking up a few trees. Well, and I guess if we did this, we can kind of show it too. Where we're like, okay, robots, please help us. And you see they go out, they fly, and they'll get there. And that's certainly cool. But that was with a bunch of robots that our factory had on hand. That won't always be the case. What happens if we're using our personal roboport? Well, they take forever. When nanobots are super fast. So there's no way like 2 or 5 robots is going to keep up with what nanobots can do. For now. We certainly want to have our personal roboports, but the problem is power. We don't have the power density in our current armor. And certainly power armor is more or less around the corner, but it is going to require green circuits. And green circuits require integrated electronics, which themselves requires gold, which we don't quite have yet. We could make gold, so it's not like the end of the world. Interestingly though, the gold doesn't actually seem to go into any of this stuff, which is an interesting oversight if that's the case. These do require fiberglass boards, but I don't think gold goes into that. But regardless, it's more stuff we don't have quite yet, so we'll certainly get to that point where our armor will be strong enough for bots. We're just not there yet. But nonetheless, let's research this stuff. The personal roboports work similarly to the vanilla roboports, where they do everything. They have a construction area, they have robot limits, they have charge ports. However, the modular components also exist. So I'll just hit that to research it here. So let's say you wanted to expand your area. Well, here's a 1x1 item that will do that you slot in your inventory. Or if you want more charge pads, you put that. And if you want to control a few more robots, in this case 5, you use that. So the modular components still exist. In addition, it does unlock these robot parts that we've already unlocked elsewhere. But it unlocks these little chips here that you can put in that add extra functionality to the roboport. Now you have to have the roboport for these to have any effect. And they do require green science. But we can have the automatic item retriever. So when you walk by the ground, and if there's something on the ground, which is pretty much something you never want to have. Now granted, biter orbs find their way on the ground quite a bit. But like regular items that get dropped there because of belt malfunctions or something, you definitely don't want items on the ground, so this is a convenient thing for that. And if you don't feel like cutting down trees, you can use the automatic tree cutter or the automatic unit launcher to send defensive robots to protect you in a fight. The nanobot logistics interface, so nanobots can work inside the logistics zone, or a health feeder to feed you fish in the middle of a fight. So these are all kind of convenient things. They are green circuits, so we're going to have to wait on those. But they are kind of neat. And let's just hit Roboport 2 while we're here. It's kind of the same as everything else. Just upgrades and has all the same parts. And also has the tier 2 of these upgrade parts as well. So we'll hit that, let it research. It probably won't take very long. So here we are. We are now making both robot types. But construction robots are kind of useless if they don't have things to construct. We do have the robot parts right here, which they can use, but that's all we have. And that won't go very far, unfortunately. We need to manufacture other useful things. So now we're at the point on our bus here where we're going to start replacing major setups. And the first step here is to make some belts. We could copy and paste this, but this uses a lot of old parts, like yellow inserters and these old iron power poles. So you can see how there's lots of inserters here because they didn't have the capacity. So we may want to consider rebuilding this. For now, let's go down there and take a look at it and see what kind of modifications we can make. I have the feeling that it's going to be too different when you consider modules and the speeds of the new machines to what we have now, that we probably don't want to copy and paste it, but instead kind of basically make it brand new. After all, as our base gets bigger, we're going to need more and more belts faster and faster, so we don't want to limit ourselves based on such an old setup. But having it here with all of the belts hooked up might help us visualize what's going on here. So for now, let's just make an extra copy of it and just kind of plop it up here. But we should probably make a new setup here with all of the belt types. And we'll just set it to one machine. And I don't think we have access to the next tier of belts yet. It is blue science, but it's locked behind cobalt. Now, cobalt isn't that difficult to get, but it is the tier 3 of ore sorting. So we probably want to wait on that for a little bit. So actually, in that sense, we might want to set this up in such a way that makes it friendly for upgrading. And to do that, we probably want to flip it vertically like this so it can expand down with the higher tier machines. And in doing this, it makes it much different than its original design here. So unfortunately, I think we probably just want to start anew. It's sad, but sometimes things change enough where new machines are required here. But we can figure out some numbers where we want one machine making red splitters, one machine making yellows, one machine making whites. Then we'll want undergrounds. Also one machine making each. And then we're going to want red belts, one machine, which has its requirement of yellow belts, and other machines do as well. So I want to make the yellow belts, and they are linked, which has its white belt requirement, but so do these, so we come back here and do white. So for most of these machines, we probably want to just kind of stick with these numbers, because if you look at the total number requirement, we're at 50 steel gears and 22 iron gears. And that's already kind of a lot. So we probably don't want to put any speed modules in here and make this worse. And they don't accept productivities, so we're probably just going to do a bunch of efficiency modules for this, at least when it's 1-to-1 ratio with the machines. And we can do that. Get rid of that flashing there. We do want to work on vehicle roboports as well. Now, vehicles don't have the same problem that our armor does, because vehicles have access to their own power source. So they can very much use roboports, and upgrading our crawler to use the construction bots will make them much faster, because they're kind of slow right now. So although we can't have robots in our armor, we can have them in our truck, which is quite convenient. So we'll grab that, and the concept is the same as the power armor, where the roboports do all the standard stuff, but if you want to expand their functionality without putting more roboports in there, you can just put the individual items. So we'll do that, and they also have their second tier as well. And I guess we'll finish working on these belts here, and then after that we can test out the vehicle roboports. But all of these here keep taking the efficiency modules because they're already a 1-to-1 ratio. However, it starts to change a little bit with these belts since they go into multiple things, so we do want to put some speeds in there to make it a 1-to-1 ratio, and then the efficiencies beyond that. Okay. So that'll be the same cube that we kind of already have, where it'll be the set of 3 machines with space in the middle for the chests. And they move along, and then we'll have to figure out how to get all the resources in here. What I'm kind of thinking is, instead of going straight up, because we're probably going to want to have additional tiers up here instead, it's going to take up a little more space, but we have space now, where the belts come in, and then they, like, come right there to deliver the necessary resources, and they just keep going up and up and up as required. That seems like that would work pretty well. Lastly, we need to put the necessary coil choppers in here. So let's chop up iron. We'd only need one machine, but if we want to use productivities, that will definitely change, but we have space, so why not take advantage of that efficiency? And these are going to be bigger, but still, we want to use the productivities whenever possible, as we do on this electronics assembler as well. And there we go. We're down to the basic items. And unfortunately, all these things are kind of scattered in all of their own menus, so it's going to make setting this up kind of annoying. And you might think, well, this would be a lot easier if we used bots. And yes, it would be. But the problem is that this is going to be a relatively high throughput thing, just based on this setup here. These are all the items we're going to be pushing through. Do we really want to have this many items being moved by bots just because we want some red belts? Probably not. So when you're in a high throughput situation, you probably want to try to make inserters work when possible. Let's see, 3 speeds and an efficiency. Fortunately, the way this menu's set up, it makes it kind of annoying. Can't really pin these because there's so many different types. I think we can use 2 plate machines right there to unload the iron plates into those machines. And then we'll just need machines elsewhere getting all these tin plates. So this is not going to be square in the slightest. It is kind of a little frustrating because this setup was significantly more square. I don't know. Sometimes you gotta bail on what you're doing and stick with what was done. Let's just put this over here for now. Just not liking how not square that is. So let's kind of plop this way up here. Working on this is a little difficult too, because it's not only old, but fairly complicated as far as belts are concerned. The whole setup could probably be squished significantly more than it is. And we can kind of look down here to see what's going on. But we'll work on what we can. And that should cover the undergrounds. We can leave some space on the side here when we build it to make sure that we have room for additional tiers of belts when the time comes. We do want to be delivered yellows. Yellows still are useful to us. So let's make these provider chests and let those operate as normal. And then we will have some chests up here. Looking kind of weird. But then these can request the splitters, the belts, and the undergrounds. So it looks kind of weird having that, but since we don't have buffer chests, this is kind of the other way to do it, where any extra resources will get sent into here, which will then get injected into this chest, and the inserter will only turn on if the chest is low. Meanwhile, those can supply our inventory if we need it. And so will these. And all of these numbers, yeah, they've worked for us so far. So we might as well keep using them. So I think we've got something that's good enough to test. So let's pick it up and deliver it. So let's put it up here and we can't flip it. Oh, that's so annoying. Specifically because the low tier stuff is on the left and it's going to expand to the right, which would be the wrong direction. Maybe if I keep hitting the button, it'll let it flip. So what is the thing on there that's not letting it flip? Is it the assembling machine, like the electronics assembler, if I recall? Let's just put it there. Let's see if taking it out will let me flip it. Okay, there we go. I feel better now. So we got to get it lined up the right way. And looks like there's some water here. We don't need to leave much space on the right here, where the low tier belts will be. But we do want to leave quite a bit of space on the left for the at least next tier of belts, hopefully a couple tiers. So we probably want to leave a nice healthy amount of space in here for expansion. But for now, we'll plop it in here. And because it's a logistics zone, it's not letting us work here, and the resources that are available are being delivered by speedy robots. So for now, we probably want to put storage chest somewhere. Well, let's just put it here and drop everything in there the robots might need. And watch them get to work. Boom. If only we can have this many in our inventory. And then they all wait in line to park. I don't think it's worth necessarily having a ton of robo chests here just for a random construction. Probably not. That whenever you do construction, they're going to burst like that, and that's kind of regular behavior. So there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. They'll eventually get in there. Okay. I think that's everything. We do need to get the wood and stone in here, which is a little awkward. Luckily, had the foresight to bring that along. But we don't have wood because it just didn't have very many uses. We should have it on the drone network, and we do. Not sure exactly how much of it we're going to be able to send down here. Like how many drones we're going to need. But for now, let's make a request with, say, 10 drones. And the truck immediately comes over here. And there they go. And they're not going to make very many requests because we only have a couple thousand wood on the network, so we're probably going to want to do something about that. But let's see. Let's send the wood down here because we don't need it to be on the bus, like on a line here. We just need to combine it as appropriate. So if it comes in and goes down there, it should go to where it needs to be. We'll just have to wait for it to get here. Although, it's not like wood is hard to come across. It's everywhere. And we even have a bunch of it in our inventory. So we could jumpstart this process. Okay, hopefully that's most of the resources we need. We have to carefully get this all hooked up. I believe the iron goes straight through there. And then that gets hooked up. And the engines come in on this side. We'll have to pay close attention to this. Of course, it operates very quickly. Looks like this thing's kind of maxed out. Of course, then it fills up, so there's nothing more to see there. But we got those two things to hook up. See, that inserter seems a little slow. But of course, boom, it's done already. Seems like it only needs to run at half speed, though, in order to support the red underground. So that's probably why it's at that speed. Because for the most part, we're going to want the red belts. We don't really care about the other ones. I mean, we use them, but just not to the same degree. Okay, let's add some gears and motors in here. Looks like this one is short on wood. It's still short. And still short. So I guess it needs to be red. And it's done. Okay. Let's add some more metals. It looks like I forgot some of the circuits in here. But there's more going on now to pay attention to. Let's see, this one is short on the tin. It's also short on motors. Now it's looking pretty good. This one is short on the tin. Seems pretty good. This one needs the electronic boards. Although we might be able to hook up this last little bit and then start picking up resources from the machines here. Well, there's a big flurry of inserters. The belt machines in the middle should be basically going most of the time. The ones on the bottom aren't full speed. Man, this is way faster than what we had before. And there we go, now we got more belts to work with. Nice having the bots keep the inventory clean. It gets dirty pretty quick when you're working on attaching things to the bus. And of course we're going to start seeing requests because we're consuming a bunch of resources. It's looking fairly good. But, you know, like we're limited because we can only produce 30 steel gears a second, but we need technically 50 for this to run at full speed, so it's not designed to run completely full. We just want to make sure there's no obvious limitations like an inserter or something. See, and that one is short on circuits. When you have this many inserters moving, it can be difficult to find which ones are moving slow. It's like the Where's Waldo of inserters. Find the inserter that's running at full speed, because it's falling behind. Here's one. This belt. It's actually pretty impressive when you think about it, how fast this is creating lots of belts for us. Because normally these underground belts take forever, especially the red ones. And just like that, it filled up. Now it's just the regular belts. Looking pretty good. But since this is a place where bots frequent, it makes sense to have lots of places for them to park. Here come the bots with more resources, and they'll take some of that free parking we gave. Okay. Well, we can come in here and update our logistics. Well, we don't want to have any of the first tier belts because we just don't use them anymore. I'm just too slow to be useful. Question is, how many belts would we want to have in our inventory? It's kind of tricky because if we're doing a construction project, we might want to have a whole bunch of them. So how about we'll do just infinite for now. We want to have at least one stack, but ignore any more than that. Let's see, are the bots coming here to deliver? Looks like it, but I think we were just not quite standing in the network. Yeah. So let's just add this right here, just to make sure. And if we have any extra resources we don't want to deal with, like belts or whatever, we can certainly dump them into the trash lots. And let the robots come in and clear out the inventory for us. So that's probably the best way to deal with resources that we need potentially a ton of. Well, our inventory is getting a little cleaner. We still got a ways to go. But at least now, if we want to build something that at least has belts, the construction bots will handle it for us. So we're getting there to have a useful construction network here. And it looks like they did not deliver these here because we don't have storage chests either, and we probably should. Just for consistency. And basically, anytime resources find their way to a storage chest, it means you didn't have a filter to send it to the specific location. And because they're all just buffers, once they've been delivered to that location, nothing will happen. So this is kind of like well, it's not really a buffer, but it works in the sense of a buffer to where, yes, it's possible that some items will get here that really should be in some of these chests, but if you just do some construction and just kind of wait, eventually they'll be cleared out. And actually, we probably should do some research, because we can access the much larger strong boxes. So this will allow us to upgrade our current ones to turn them into providers or storage chests. Might as well. And the requesters are locked behind other research, so we can't go that way, but we can at least get these big storage warehouses, which is kind of what we need. We really need a really big one somewhere that we can just kind of keep an eye on from time to time to make sure no weird resources get in there. It's kind of the same concept as our ore bus. These warehouses right here. Luckily, they're still empty. But they're there in case any weird resources get on this ore bus and find their way to the end, that we'll know about it. And we kind of need the same thing for our bots, and we can use a big storage warehouse that has no filter on it that we can keep checking on. And just like that, boom, it's filled. So that was pretty convenient. So let's put some of this stuff in the trash lots. And there we go. The bots come and grab them. And that's the end of this episode. On the next one, we're going to continue to expand our bus to include power poles and substations. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.